there's a number of different aspects to this. There's obviously a number of risk factors that affect financial flows, whatever we're talking about, whether it's climate finance or whether it's finance for a factory that's actually producing something nothing to do with climate. And that's what we call the enabling environment in a country. What's the political risk? What's the exchange risk? What are the political conditions, the policy stability, and so on? And all these things affect how willing people are to invest, both domestic investors and foreign investors. So you see this reflected a little bit in the credit ratings that are given to countries as well. So there's those general things that need to be improved. But specifically on climate, I think there are at least three dimensions. One is you need a good policy framework. You need to put some good incentives in place for people to invest, because for investors it's all about risk and return. For the governments it's about social benefit, but for private investors it's all about risk and return. So you need to put some good price incentives. So we need to think about reforming harmful fossil fuel subsidies where they're there. And I was just in an event with Indonesia yesterday which showed how dramatic the progress they'd made on reforming those subsidies had been. So if Indonesia can do it, I'm sure a lot of other countries, including richer ones, can do it too. And then you need to begin pricing the pollution, the externalities, whether it's the climate externalities or the air pollution externalities. Okay, so there's three or four at least. The obvious one is we need to scale up renewable energy generation. So by 2030, I think for something like a well below 2 degree scenario, let alone a 1.5, but for a well below 2 degree scenario, we probably need 50% of our electricity to be generated by renewables by 2030. Currently it's not bad, it's just over a quarter, but that's still a lot of capacity that needs to be built. And at the same time, we see countries are still investing in coal plants, the dirtiest, most polluting plants, which we know are very inefficient as well. So we have to shift the investment patterns. Renewables is one, energy efficiency is another. We can make a lot of savings, a lot of investment savings by not having to build new generation plants if we can make sure we use our energy efficiently. So big investments in energy efficiency. How do we do that? How do we scale that up? That's a challenge. People are working on that, but I think energy efficiency in buildings, energy efficiency in transport has gone some way, but behavior has led people to buy bigger cars and more cars in all sorts of countries. So I'm not sure that we have a low emissions future that just depends on vehicles. We have to think about public transport, as I mentioned earlier on. We have to think about public transport. We have to think about how we design our cities from the outset. How do we integrate the urban planning with the transport planning? And that doesn't always happen. Even in advanced economies, sometimes the ministries don't coordinate well, and you end up with solutions that are really not very good, where people don't have access to public transport, they have to use cars, then you generate all the pollution, all the congestion, all the problems we want to avoid. And yet, if we'd started with a better design from the outset, we could have avoided all that. So we need to think hard about that, because we know populations are going to grow in Africa and Asia. There's going to be a lot more cities, cities are going to grow. We need to really factor that into our planning early on, and that will avoid a lot of costs that we won't have to meet.